Okay, Shalom. This is the introductory shiur, for the seventh part of our look at Birchas Hamitzvos, the bracha that you recite before doing a mitzvah. So we're going to be looking at a continuation of a discussion almost of when to make the bracha, but different than our previous discussion of Rashi Yasan, but it's definitely a continuation of that last sugya. So the Gemara says as follows. This is in source of one. So he says that when you're tying your tzitzis and you're making the strings, so you should make a bracha of lasos tzitzis. Asher k'dshano b'mitzvos tzivanu lasos tzitzis. Amar lei my tzitzi shama nishmana. So sort of like in a humorous way, he says, "What is this tzitzi that I hear you saying?" Right, this sound. So he says, "Hachi amar Rav tzitzis ein tzarich bracha." So Rav answers him, "You don't make a bracha on making tzitzis." Hinoch nafshi derav Huna Rav Chisda memory derav adarav miyamar Rav tzitzis ein tzarich bracha. Now, did you really say? Excuse me, tzitzis don't require a bracha to make, not to wear, but to make the tzitzis. We see that tzitzis that's made by a gentile is pasul. Shneimar daber el bnei Yisrael basulam tzitzis. It says to say the Jewish people bnei Yisrael yasu lo el dekochavim yasu. So non-Jews don't make tzitzis. Only Jews should make the tzitzis. V'ha my rumya. So what does that have to do with anything? Amar Yosef Kisar Rechista Kol Mitzvah Shekshera Ba'ol Bekochavim B'Yisrael Ein Tzarich Levarach. Any mitzvah that can be manufactured by a non-Jew, by an idolater, so then Jews shouldn't make a bracha on it. Kol Mitzvah Shepsula Ba'ol Bekochavim. Right? Any mitzvah that would become pasul if a non-Jew manufactured the object of the mitzvah. B'Yisrael Tzarich Levarach. Then a Jew has to make the bracha. So the question is, to start off, is what disqualification does a mitzvah that a gentile can manufacture? Right? What disqualification does that type of a mitzvah that a gentile can manufacture contain that would exempt the mitzvah itself now from a Jew making a bracha on it before they then did the mitzvah? How does that work? Okay, so Rashi explains, Kol mitzvah shekshir bo b'kochavim b'Yisrael ein tzarich bracha. What's the issue? Because a guy can't have a kochavim, right? So nami kashabavne. Okay, right. So he says that how could you say asher k'deshanu when a gentile can participate in the mitzvah by manufacturing the mitzvah? Asher k'deshanu means that God sanctified us. So He sanctified us from the Gentiles, like different than the Gentiles, but a non-Jew wasn't sanctified with the mitzvah. So how could you say the bracha then at that point if the Gentile was included? So the question is, according to Rashi, what's the issue with a gentile like omitting a Birchas Hamitzvos and a Jew reciting the words Asher k'deshanu? Well, what's the issue here? Okay, Tosfos says it a little right. Tosfos says a little differently. He says B'Yisrael ein tzarich levarach. What does that mean that a Jew doesn't recite the bracha? Demashmat tzivanu v'lo lacherim. It says the bracha that we're going to say is Asher k'deshanu b'mitzvos v'tzivanu, that He commanded us, right? But if a Gentile is able to participate, then we weren't the ones commanded. Right, so the Gentile, not us. So that's Tosfos. The Rashi focuses on Asher k'deshanu, sorry, and Tosfos focuses on the word B'tzivanu. Those are the issues. And the question we have same question we asked on Rashi. So they ask on Tosfos, what's the issue with tzivanu? But it brings us up to a larger question, which we've asked in a past year but never addressed. Is first let me ask one question. Why would there be a bracha on manufacturing a mitzvah anyway? Why would we say la'asos, right? Why would we make that bracha in the first place? The bracha should be on the fulfillment of the mitzvah. So why are we making a bracha on the manufacturing of the mitzvah? Then the larger question is that we've seen a number of halachos that Birchas Hamitzvos issues arise because the words in the bracha of Asher k'deshanu b'mitzvos v'tzivanu that we say in the text of the bracha that God sanctified us with this command, right? That's the text, and it brings up a lot of different issues, right? We saw with Birchas Hamitzvos on rabbinic issues. How can we say that the rabbis, it's a rabbinic mitzvah? How can we say that God commanded us? And then we saw also with the laws of sakanah. We saw with the laws of a gentile, right? And now we see it here with the laws of a gentile in terms of being able to manufacture things. So it seems it would be easier just to omit the words across the board and avoid all these issues. What's the importance of the words of Asher k'deshanu b'mitzvos v'tzivanu, that they're essential to all Birchas Hamitzvos to the point where it creates all these issues? and we focus on them anyway. Okay. The Gemara has a much longer discussion. It goes on and on about Birchas Hamitzvos that Gentiles can perform and making a bracha on the manufacturing of a mitzvah. So here the Gemara ends off its discussion, says, Hainu Taima, Kol mitzvah dasiyasa kamar mitzvah. Any mitzvah that's manufacturing of the object of the mitzvah is the fulfillment of the mitzvah. It could go in milah, like bris milah, right? When we quote unquote manufacture the circumcision, so that's the mitzvah, right? That's the end of the mitzvah. Even if a non-Jew can do it, a Jew still needs to make a bracha. But any mitzvah that its manufacturing is not the end of the mitzvah. You go in tefillin, like we make tefillin, right? But that's not the end. You have to wear the tefillin. Even though they're puzzled with an ovei kochavim, Yisrael ain't tzarich habarach, where the Jew doesn't have to make a bracha. Okay. So question, what's the quality of mitzvah that comes at the Gemar mitzvah, right? That now we're saying it all depends on an action, right? That requires the Birchas Hamitzvos to be recited before the Gemar mitzvah, right? Why is it dafka, right, being recited before the end of the mitzvah's performance? So why do we make the bracha on tefillin when we wear the tefillin and not when we manufacture the tefillin? Okay. Tosfos brings up an interesting sheet of the Yerushalmi. He says, "V'yadua haya shelo levarach lasos tefillin, right? Shelo kol yonei brachos so parak roa Yerushalmi matzich levarach asiyat tzitzis sukkot tefillin." He says, while the Bavli is very clear in our Bavli that you don't make a bracha on manufacturing the mitzvah, but rather on fulfilling the mitzvah, Tosfos says the Yerushalmi holds the opposite. Says that you also make a bracha on the manufacturing of the mitzvah. In other words, when you make tzitzis or you make tefillin or you build your sukkah, you would make a bracha. So what's the svara of the Yerushalmi? That's our next question. Okay. The Or Zarua explains the Yerushalmi, and he says, "Asaras Talmud Yerushalmi, du mishum the mitzvah lasos hamitzvah l'shma," because there's a mitzvah when you're making your tzitzis, when you're making your tefillin, you're making your sukkah, to make it in mind with having the mitzvah in mind. In other words, when you make tzitzis, you have to say, okay, I'm doing this for the mitzvah tzitzis. You know, you're not just tying strings together. So therefore, since it's l'shma, mevarach al siyasan. So since it has this quality of l'shma, so therefore you have to make a bracha on the manufacturing. So what is it about the requirement of l'shma that requires a Birchas Hamitzvos to be recited before the manufacturing of that mitzvah? Okay. Going on, so the Rambam is a very, very wordy here. The Rambam says as follows: Kol mitzvah shasiyasa hi gmar chiyuva mevarach b'shas asiya. Any mitzvah that it's the end of the manufacturing process is also the end of the mitzvah. So then you make the bracha at the manufacturing time. V'chol mitzvah sheish achar asiyasa tzivui acher. But if there's another command, another din afterwards, Eino mevarach b'shas asiyasa asher kisham susitzimanu lasos sukkah lulav o shofar o tzitzis o tefillin o mezuzah. Eino mevarach b'shas asiya asher kisham susitzimanu lasos sukkah lulav. So then it's a b'gnei sheish acher asiyasa tzivui acher. Since there's another command after the manufacturing, so then you have to do then you make, that's when you make the bracha. So when do you make the bracha? At the time that you sit in the sukkah, the time that you wave your lulav, not when you put the lulav together. Shishma kol shofar, when you hear the sound of the shofar, not when you make the shofar. Right, so on and on. Okay, so the question is like this. My question is, the Rambam's very wordy in this halacha. He lists all the possibilities, like all the different iterations of what it could be before manufacturing and after manufacturing. Why not just write, you only make a bracha at the last action of each mitzvah? Done. Right? Why did he have to address all the different types of things that could happen? And why did the Rambam not bring in this whole discussion of whether a Jew or a non-Jew, whether a non-Jew can participate in the manufacturing process, right? That was our first Gemara, had that whole discussion about whether or not an ovei kochavim can participate in the manufacturing. If an ovei kochavim can participate in the manufacturing of it, so then we don't, right? So then you don't have him, you don't recite the Birchas Hamitzvos. That's what the Gemara based it on. Later on, the Gemara says it doesn't make a difference. But why didn't the Rambam bring that up? Okay, so those are two questions. Rabbeinu Manoach says here, even though it says in the pasuk you should make a sukkah, The manufacturing of the mitzvah is the beginning of the mitzvah, but it is not the main part. Because the main part is wearing the tzitzis, as it's the kiyum of the mitzvah. Okay. To answer our questions, we're going to look at this comment of the Abu Draham. Okay, the Abu Draham says, "Al shem b'ikdashim v'yisem kedoshim." Why does the text of the Birchas Hamitzvos say Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav, that we were sanctified with the mitzvos? Because it says b'ikdashim v'yisem kedoshim. The apostle says you should be kadosh. Al shem lios lo am kadosh lishmor mitzvosav. Right. So then we do this in order to be a sanctified nation, to fulfill his mitzvos. V'yesh mefarshim, and there are those that explain shehu lashon erusin v'kiddushin. It's like sort of a marriage language. Shekadshana Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael b'mitzvos. That Kadosh Baruch Hu is mekadesh, sanctified, the same way a husband sanctifies his wife only for him. Kadosh Baruch Hu sanctified b'nei Yisrael only for us with the mitzvos. Shneamar v'sticha bli ben muna v'mitzvos nikru amuna. Right? Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I brought you in with faith, and the mitzvos are what's called faith. Shneamar kol mitzvos secha amuna. V'tzivanu al shem Torah tzivalanu. Okay. And then he says as follows. He says, because of Evan Hayerchi, this Rishon named Evan Hayerchi, Nishalti al inyan habrachos, tchilason medaber kalpei Hashem, hilu kenegdo. So he says, he notices an oddity. It says, Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam. So, right, so in the beginning, the first part, Baruch atah Hashem, refers to Kadosh Baruch Hu as if we're standing in front of Kadosh Baruch Hu. Right? Medaber kalpei Hashem, kilu hu kenegdo, as if the Kadosh Baruch Hu is standing across from us. Ubesofa, but when we say Elokeinu melech haolam asher kidshanu, kilu eino kenegdo, right? So it's as if he's not there. So Talmud Kula Mimashan Emar Shivisi Hashem Negdi Tamid, because what's the idea? That we're supposed to have, like the pasuk in Tehillim that says that we should always have Hashem across from us. Kishemaskeres Hashem, V'omer Baruch Atah Hashem, who omit le'negdo. When we mention Hashem's name and we say Baruch Atah Hashem, it's as if Hashem is across from us. Then when we say Melech HaOlam, it's as if we're not standing across from God. Who kiddushanu b'mitzosav v'tzivanu lasosam. So then we talk about Hashem, right? Instead of talking directly addressing Hashem in first person, rather we talk about Hashem and say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the King of the universe, was the one who commanded us in those mitzvos. Okay, those are the sources that we're going to see in the Shiur B'li Neder this coming week. All the best.